In his book, Waking Up in Time, Peter Russell makes reference to an evolutionary model of spirituality developed in the 1930s by the French Jesuit priest Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, someone with whose work Houston Smith is also well acquainted.
Teilhard de Chardin said, everything that rises converges. And even though we're talking metaphysically, because God and spiritual matters are outside of geography, so we eventually get to a point which is like a mathematical point, no extension, and yet it has every virtue elevated to infinite degree, and they all converge in that mathematical point.
He called it the omega point, the end point of human evolution, and he saw it as all human beings waking up to their essential divinity. He saw it as thousands of years in the future, because he hadn't seen what television and computers were going to do. Well, just at the end of his life, he saw what television could do, and he saw computers. He said, when he saw the first computer, he said, this might bring the omega point much faster. But I think that's what's happening now. Now we've got the internet and communication abilities. We're accelerating towards that point of collective awakening.
So this is the time to pay attention to what the perennial philosophy says about the nature of reality, because surely the present understanding of the nature of reality, which is called the modernism or postmodernism, is confronting us with immense challenges, to put it mildly. And it's strange that now that we only have just a few years to live on the earth, if we don't change our relation to the environment, in a sense what we've been saying all the time is now taken much more seriously by many people. Now that we're about to commit mass suicide, and many people think we only have a decade left. Some people think it's already too late, we're all going to burn to death, and global warming and all these things. I don't want to be alarmist, but the ambience is such that it's easier now to talk about these matters than 50 years ago.
With all the conflicts taking place in the world today, and all the challenges we face, it's a very fearful time for many people. The world is changing dramatically. It's not at all clear where it will lead. Change in itself can be unsettling, and resistance to change often results in even greater anxiety.
So much fear is created because we hold on to things. We hold on to, I want this to stay this way, I don't want this to happen. And so I think so much of what goes wrong in the world comes out of fear-driven activities. So I see when we begin en masse to make that next step in evolution and collectively recognize, not just understand it, but collectively free ourselves, wake ourselves up, make that inner transformation, then I think we can move into a world which will be totally different in the way we operate. I don't know what it will look like, but the basic motivations of people will have changed. We won't be fighting each other. I don't just mean fighting each other physically, but won't be competing so much for what people think about us, or getting our status, that sort of thing. We'll be in a much more compassionate, understanding mode of consciousness with regarding to each other, and not wanting to take so much from the world either. And I think it's that sort of shift that we need.
In pursuing his understanding of world religions and mystic traditions, Houston Smith has chosen not to remain aloof and to study them from a distance. He actively engages in practices such as yoga and meditation in order to strengthen his connection with what he refers to as the breath of God.
And that breath of God is the deepest element within us. However, it is buried deep in our being, and we don't have, except mystics can those experiential mystics can zoom down into that. And the point of meditation is to come closer to doing that.
And on the personal level, I think more and more people are realizing we have so much as individuals. We can have almost anything we want. And we're beginning to realize that having yet another DVD player, whatever it is, doesn't actually make us any more fulfilled. And so what we're seeing is this widespread shift throughout the culture of people beginning to look towards the more inner, spiritual, mystical traditions to improve the quality of their life. And I think that is the most fascinating change, and that's happening right now. I mean, I saw figures the other day, something like 20 million people in the US now practice yoga, which is just the beginning point for many people. It may just be stretching their limbs for a start, but gradually they're opening up to doing inner work, to beginning to change themselves on the inside. And there's many other people who are doing other things besides yoga. So there's this widespread movement of people beginning to look inside, and that's coming at just the time we need it. And that's growing. It's growing faster and faster and faster. And I think that's going to be the next major trend, is more and more people putting a focus on their own inner awakening.
While meditation, prayer, and various other techniques are employed to cultivate and nourish one's connection with divinity, other avenues can bring an awareness of what Huston Smith calls the intuitive discernment of the infinite. He finds it expressed in many different ways, some of them poetic. A favorite verse comes from Edna St. Vincent Millay. The soul can split the sky in two and let the face of God shine through.
I think that's wonderful, because I do believe that after death, while we're ushered and welcomed into an infinite world, which includes infinite understanding. But until then, why, our job is to enlarge ours.
According to the Perennial philosophy, this type of mystical experience is not confined to internal explorations of consciousness, but may be encountered anywhere, at any time. As Aldous Huxley writes, the universe is an everlasting succession of events, but its ground is the timeless now of the divine spirit. Such expressions point to the nature of the experiences that might be encountered beyond theology. I'm Charles Atkins, Jr. Thanks for being with us. Join us for a special edition of Beyond Theology as we travel to Montreal and participate in a global congress of the world's religions. We'll hear from some of the participants and learn about the role of religion in a post-9/11 world.
Since every violent action creates a more violent reaction, the world today is in an abyss of hostility.
The battle between the godly versus the godless, seeing myself and my own as the righteous against the evil on the other side.
But now that we know that we're living in one world, we have to not do to other nations what we would not like done to ourselves.
A global congress of the world's religions, coming up on a special edition of Beyond Theology.
Production funding for this program has been provided in part by the Shoemaker Family Foundation, promoting social and environmental justice, education, spirituality, and the arts.